Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 2020 Candidates Forum for the STPUD Board Elections taking place this November 3rd. I'm John Teal, the General Manager for the district, and also want to recognize Melanie Guthrie over here. She's our Executive Services Manager and Clerk of the Board. She's put this all together, along with Marla. Thank you. And along with Brian and Chris Kelly back here, who is handling the IT for us tonight. And we are live online, and this forum will be recorded and available on our website, stpud.us. And then Shelley Thompson, our Public Affairs and Conservation Manager, who will be moderating this event this evening. A few housekeeping tidbits before we get started. For those in attendance this evening, the bathrooms are located just outside this room off the lobby. Please mute your phones and wear your mask when coming and going when you are not able to maintain 6-foot social distance. For those online, please keep yourself muted to prevent distracting background noise. This is actually our first candidate forum during a pandemic. Shockingly, and hopefully the last. So if anyone experiences issues with sound or anything else, please raise your hand or send in a chat message if you're online. So I'll go over the format a little bit for tonight. The forum will consist of opening statements from each of the candidates, then a question-answer session, and then closing statements from each candidate. Each of the 7 candidates will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. Then Melanie will be holding up 1 minute, 30-second, and 10-second signs, or Marla, to help keep us on track. So after opening statements, the audience will have the opportunity to ask questions, and all 7 candidates will be allowed 1 minute to respond to each question. Again, Marla will provide the time check. Audience members may ask a question by raising their hand, and Shelley will bring you the microphone, or you can fill out and hold up a question card. They're on the table in the back, or by submitting a question via the chat box if you're attending virtually. After the Q&A, each candidate will be provided 2 minutes to give a closing statement. So before we get started, I just want to thank all 7 candidates for putting themselves out there, running for an elected position as a critical community service. Thank you. It's important that the district's board represents all of our community tonight, and we have a well-rounded group of candidates, all well qualified in their own way, hoping to represent all of you, our ratepayers. After all, this is your public utility system. It takes a lot to come forward, put yourself out there, public speaking to different groups and the media, and developing good public policy is really tough. I totally appreciate that. So with that, Shelley, can you please introduce the candidates and get us rolling?
Absolutely. All right, so visually we've got 2 different, when you look on your ballot, you have 2 different options for voting. So up on the top tier, we have 3 candidates that are running for 2 open seats. These are 4-year terms. So starting on the far left is Dwayne Wallace, who was appointed to the board this last year and has served on the board for 20 of the last 30 years. He previously owned restaurants in town. David Peterson is in the middle. He is a retired civil engineer that started the company Peterson Brewstad and consults on water resources issues out of Tulsa. And then on the far right is Kelly Sheehan. She served on the board the last 9 years and owns and operates Steamers Bar and Grill. So on the ballot, you'll have an option to vote for 2 of the 3 of these candidates. The front row here in the boardroom tonight, we have 4 candidates running for 1 position. This is a 2-year term, which is rather unusual at the district. Normally, our board serves 4-year terms, and the reason it's on the ballot this election is due to the recent passing of one of our long-term board members, Jim Jones. So for the candidates running for the 1 2-year term, we have Margie Koverick-Maxheimer, who has owned several t-shirt shops and souvenir shops in town and the rental property company Tahoe Summers. Shane Ramsos is next. He's an environmental research scientist at Spatial Informatics Group. Jerry Grego is on second from the right, is a retired resort manager, and Jennifer Peterson is a local attorney and real estate broker. So to kick it off, we're going to start with the intros, and I'm going to start with a different person each time as we go so that you don't feel the pressure as the first person to start. And so I think I'll start. Dwayne, why don't you start us off with a 2-minute intro? We'll go down the road to David Kelly and start at Margie and go down the road before we go to Washington.
Okay. First, I might say that you can't go wrong. Kelly, David, Jennifer, Jerry, Shane, and Margie are all excellent people. So I feel good about the district one way or another. And I hope to get one of your 2 votes for this position. Why am I running? I've had a long relationship with the district. It actually started when I was about 18, 19 years old. I was in college. And we studied the district, and I could not believe what I was seeing in this biology class, that this district, they had a spigot at the end and people were actually drinking the water that had once been sewer water. That fascinated me, and so I studied the district. Then I happened to have the opportunity to buy a restaurant here when I was 21, and ran that for 16 years, and then was exec of the chamber. And during that time, I had the opportunity to meet the people who had actually been on the first board. So I got a good understanding of why the district was formed, from Les Nagy and people like that. And then some of the next people that came along, John Wynn and others, kept my interest up. Then in the mid-'80s, there was a forum on affordable housing of all things. Gosh, we really solved that. But I was assigned to do the utility district. So I got to meet Mr. Kofer, and he explained why they were charging $500 for a sewer unit, which at the time just seemed enormous. Times have changed. But that was an impediment to affordable housing, and we worked on it. So that got my interest. So finally, people said, you need to run. You need to get involved. I did, and even though I'm not an engineer, that's just not my forte, not even a detail person. But I understand boards, and I understand people, and I really enjoyed what I was doing. So over the years, off and on, I was on the board, and then some life things happened, and I would be off for a while, and I'd come back. But I've always had such a great respect for the district, and I've been able to be part of the team that has won so many awards. I'm only part of it. It wasn't me, but I was there to help. And I understood that a board member sits 30,000 feet, looks at the overall picture, hires a great general manager, and I was involved in 3 hirings, and I got to see the career of 3.
Sorry, time's up.
Boy, that went quick.
I could listen to you all night, Dwayne, but I'm sorry.
So I love the district.
Thanks, Dwayne. Dave, you want to kick us off next?
Sure. Do I need a microphone or?
No, I forgot to mention that. We have microphones throughout the room, so if audience members have issues, let us know. If folks online have issues, send a chat, but your sound should be picking up just fine online.
Very good. Thank you, everybody. My name is Dave Peterson. I'm a retired civil engineer specializing in water resources. I grew up in South Lake Tahoe back in the 60s and 70s, and my father was a local veterinarian here back then, Marvin Peterson. He started up Alpine Animal Hospital on Highway 89, and so I grew up in the Keys and raced it heavily and did all the things that kids did. Anyway, had to move away to become a civil engineer, and am now back in retirement. I've been married to the same woman since 1981, and I have 3 grown children. So, and unfortunately, they're all a long ways away. The farthest is in Seoul, South Korea, teaching English. But anyway, my career has been focused on water resources for the last 39 years. I've been doing work for clients in the private sector, clients just like South Tahoe PUD. In fact, we started up a firm in 2005, and down in Folsom, and have been doing work for the mountain communities, but not South Tahoe PUD. Anyway, that's been my specialty, doing this type of work. I understand, and I think it's important that a board have some engineering expertise on it. Boards that work well together share each other's expertise and play off of each other well. So anyway, I think that my expertise and my background would be good for the ratepayers of South Tahoe PUD. I have served on boards before. I was on the San Juan Water District in Granite Bay for 11 years. And they serve drinking water for about 250,000 people down there. As part of that, I was also on the Association of California Water Agencies Board, and the National Water Resources Association Board, and the Water for the West Foundation Board. So anyway, I do have board experience. I understand what it's like to be on a board and to work well with the board to get things done. So anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Dave. All right, Kelly, you're up.
So my name is Kelly Sheehan, and I moved to South Lake Tahoe in 1981 from the Central Valley. I met my husband, my children. I have 2 daughters who were born and raised up here. I currently own Steamer Bar and Grill. I've owned it for 12 years. I have served on this board for 9 years, which has given me valuable understanding of the unique community, the unique environmental regulations that we deal with here to serve our public with reliable, safe wastewater and water services. I understand the balance, there's a fine balance between reasonable rates and keeping our infrastructure in shape. As a local small business owner, I understand far more than many people the struggles that economically we have in our unique community. I am currently the vice president of the board. I serve on the finance committee. I represent the board as a board member for the El Dorado Water Agency, and I would love to serve another 4-year term. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. All right, Margie, you want to go next?
My name is Margie Kavart-Maxheimer, and I have lived in South Lake Tahoe for 34 years. I moved here from Montana after graduating from Carroll College with a business and accounting degree. The past 28 years have been spent owning my t-shirt stores up at State Line. That job taught me how to balance cash flow, training and retaining staff, and customer service. Before that, I was at the Outdoorsman of Lake Tahoe, and I have been married to John Max Maxheimer for 26 years. I have wanted to run for the board for 10 years and had many post office chats with Jim Jones on what would be good for the district as well as what is good for our community. Now is the time, as I have retired from my retail company last fall, and Max retired over 2 years ago from the district. I have served this community on many different boards, which has prepared me for this position. Tahoe Turning Point, the Kiwanis Club of Lake Tahoe, the El Dorado Community Foundation. I understand procedural rules of order as well as how to get along and work together with you to accomplish the needs at hand. As a board member, I would focus on the sustainability of providing water and wastewater services with a focus on infrastructure, fire hydrants and fire flow, and possibility pricing strategies. Our job as board members is to keep an eye on our managerial, technical, and financial capacities. Congratulations to the district for being recognized for their excellence in technology practices, November 2019. Let's work together to keep our customers well served.
Thanks, Margie. All right, Shane, you're
All
up.
right, thank you. I don't have to stand up, right?
You can do a somersault.
I just want to say thank you to Melanie and John and Shelley and Shannon and Paul. I haven't met the computer guy yet. And Julie. I know this is something that probably only happens ever so often, but it's it's taking away from your families tonight, but thank you very much. So the reason why I'm running for the board is really for me to serve and give back to our community. I feel that my background in natural resources management and science and project management will add to the diversity of experience, similar to, I think, what Dave was kind of mentioning, and just kind of adding to that diversity to the board and bringing kind of a different angle of more natural resources professionalism. I believe this experience would be beneficial as basically the district deals with a multitude of natural resource management issues, such as the need to reduce wildfire risk to its infrastructure and the surrounding community. In terms of work experience, I'm currently, as Shelley mentioned, I'm a senior research scientist for a company called Spatial Informatics Group. It's a small research consultancy that we specialize in environmental analysis and modeling, basically to inform prudent natural resources management and policy. I formerly worked at TRPA, but I was the science monitoring and evaluation program manager there. But there, provided me, along with my experience with the Forest Service, just being able to deal with a lot of different agencies, basically nonprofit institutions, state, federal, local entities. And so I feel that that's provided me with a pretty good notion of kind of the players in the basin and how decisions are made. I also at one point served on the Advisory Planning Commission when I was at the Forest Service as part of the planning team that basically worked on the Forest Service's forest plan update. So in terms of community service, our family, I think I like to think of us quietly volunteering for a lot of different efforts, such as forest stewardship days, things like that. But the most rewarding for me and fulfilling really was my time spent as a youth hockey coach, where we brought our team to win a state championship in 2017. So that was a really big deal for us.
Time is up. Sorry.
Oh!
I got more. Oh, giving hockey, that's important. Jerry, why don't you take it away for us?
Sure. My name is Jerry Grego, and I moved to Tahoe in 1980. At that time, I started working in the timeshare industry, where I advanced very quickly, from working on contracts, coordinating remodeling, and management. I would complete preliminary interviews of managers and submit the top candidates to the owners for final decisions. From there, I went to the city of South Lake Tahoe, and I learned about several different departments while I was there. The headlines on the newspaper the day I started was "City to do layoffs." And so that gave you a clue as to what I was going into at the time. But I first worked in the engineering department as a clerk there, was laid off, and then went to be a 911 dispatcher, which I did for several years. Then I went back to purchasing and personnel. So I've had a little bit of several different departments at the city, got to know a whole lot of great people there, and worked well with them. I was then offered an opportunity to be a resort manager, where I thought, well, maybe instead of getting laid off again, that I would be able to try that out. So I did, and I worked there 21 years. I worked at the pleasure of a board who would change annually. I was responsible for all the departments. I managed projects that included the replacement of our sewer tank, structural beams, gas line replacements, installation of handicap lifts, remodeling, as well as planning for the future. Not only did I report to the board, but I was the one who also reported to the association membership, staff, vendors, and agencies, including the city, TRPA, and Lahontan.
Good job. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Jerry. Jennifer, you want to go next?
Yep, thank you.
Last but not least.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Peterson, and I grew up in Los Angeles and went to UC Santa Barbara, where I graduated in 1997 with a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science. I then went to Golden Gate University School of Law in San Francisco on a partial scholarship and graduated in 2000, and I've been an attorney ever since. I'm also a California real estate broker and a Nevada real estate salesperson. With nearly 20 years of experience as an attorney, I'm well-versed in reading and understanding complex laws and regulations, assessing and managing risk, and identifying objectives and creating strategic plans to obtain the best results. By utilizing these skills, I believe that I would bring a valuable and unique perspective to the board. I've lived in South Lake Tahoe for the past 12 years, and I love this community. I have 2 children, a 10-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old son. I was part of the Tahoe Parents Nursery School community for 4 years, and I've been involved with the Sierra House PTA since 2015. I also started a Girl Scout troop 3 years ago, and I've been on the board of the Boys and Girls Club of Lake Tahoe since 2015. I'm running for this position because I've always enjoyed expressing my opinion and having a say in matters that affect me and my community. I want to be part of the decision-making process to help the district determine how best to allocate its revenue and which priorities it should focus its resources on. One of the most important responsibilities as a board member is to be prepared for meetings so you can be an active participant. Sometimes board members have to ask difficult questions, and sometimes their opinion may not be what everyone wants to hear, but discussion is a key part of the process in order to help reach consensus. And I think it's critical that we share ideas and perspectives because we're all members of this community, and as directors, we represent this community. The 2 questions that will guide me in my decision-making as a director are, is this something in the district's budget, and is this in the best interest of the community? In my opinion, those are the 2 most important questions. If elected, I commit to be prepared for meetings, listen to the needs of the community, show up, and do the work. I hope I can earn your vote and be your voice on the board. Thank you for your time.
Thank
So
you.
for those of you who went over, I gave you all 20 seconds to go over. It was even
That's Melanie. Nice. Well, that was great. Obviously, you guys can tell we've got a really qualified, great group of candidates up here tonight. So we're going to be moving on to our question and answer portion of the evening. So for folks that are in the audience, you can raise your hand and I'll call on you. We've got those cards that you can fill out a question. You can hold those up. We'll come grab them. For folks online, there is a chat function on GoToMeetings. If you click that and type in your question, you can make it available for all to see or just the organizer to see. We'll be monitoring those and asking those as they come in. So I'll open the floor for questions, and I also have a few zingers if there aren't any. Any questions to get us started from the audience first? All right, well, I'll get us started then. So I'd love to hear from all of our candidates what you feel is the role and authority of the board member, since you're applying for this board, so we know what to expect as you get into this role. So I'll repeat the question, and then we'll allow each of you a minute to respond. So what do you feel is the role and authority of being a board member for South Tahoe PUD? Since I started with Dwayne last time, Dave, you mind kicking us off?
Sure. As a board member, I think it's important that I do my homework ahead of time to understand the issues brought before the board, to listen to staff, board, and public input, speak my opinions, and vote. Outside of board meetings, much of the work of the district is conducted in committees and outside connections with other agencies and individuals, and I'll represent the district well in these interactions in order to promote the policies and priorities of the district.
Awesome, thanks. Kelly?
I believe that I agree with what everyone said. A board member needs to be prepared. A board member is not a member of staff. A board member is there to oversee policy and oversight. The only person who who answers directly to the board is the general manager. And as such, I feel that we as board members should give him our guidance and our support. And the same thing, be prepared, vote, and I think it's really important that you vote not for what might benefit you the most or benefit a certain class the most, the entire community. And you should not have any personal agenda. And I'm not a micromanager either. I don't believe in that.
Thanks, Kelly. Margie, what do you feel is the role and authority of a board member?
Well, our role is to hire the general manager when the contract, when maybe say John Teal wants to retire.
Or retire.
Exactly. And we should ask him questions, and then if he feels he wants to direct us to a staff to get an answer, then that should be his prerogative. But basically, we are the oversight for our community, the ratepayers. And Kelly's quite right. You can't look at what's important for you. You have to really take the whole community into account and what's best for our district and our ratepayers. On the other part of that is to obviously to come prepared to the meetings and be able to have your opinion, but discuss it with the other board members in a collaborative way so that we come to consensus.
Shane?
Again, I agree with everything that's been said so far. Clearly, being well prepared is very important. I think the board is really responsible for establishing the strategic direction for the board in terms of kind of what the trajectory is looking like, what the capital improvement plan looks like, and making sure that we're being fiscally responsible with the ratepayers' funds. And I agree with everybody in terms of we really need to be that representative of the ratepayer themselves. In terms of the role, we're not here to micromanage staff. I think the role really is to kind of, help provide John guidance, provide oversight of council, as well as any kind of audit that might come through. I think that's about it.
Awesome. Thanks, Shane. Jerry, what do you feel is the role and authority of a board member?
Well, I've worked with a lot of board members. As I mentioned in my job earlier, they could change annually. And so one of my duties at that point was to help educate board members on what their jobs were. But my management style is one of empowerment, where I want to give staff and the district the items they need to do their job, and then work with the manager to follow up, and coordinate to make sure that those things are followed through on. I can't stress enough how important it is to have a good working relationship with the manager, because that's what makes everything work right.
Jennifer, what are your thoughts?
I agree with a lot of what everybody else has said, and going last, I guess I don't really have that much else to add, except that, I believe that the directors work with staff to formulate the policies and the goals of the district, and then ensure that the district is implementing those policies in order to reach those goals. In furtherance of the district's objectives, the board determines how to allocate the resources and prioritize projects. But with a limited budget, not every project can move forward at the same time, and so there's a lot of decision making about, what are we going to do first? What are we going to do next? Can we afford these things? And the directors help decide which things that the district should focus on and make sure that they're staying within budget. Directors are also responsible for representing the community that elected them, and they need to make sure that they're representing everyone's interests at these meetings and show up, do the work, listen to their community members. And I think it's important that we do that.
I didn't forget about you, Dwayne, even though you're not at the little table. What do you feel is the role of an authority of a board member?
I see the organizational chart differently than most people. Most people put a board up at the top, and then the staff, and maybe the public and others. I see it as kind of like the workings of a clock laying flat, and the board is the key that rubs against the public, that rubs against the staff, that rubs against the work. What that means is that the board is the what, and the staff is the how. You hire a GM, you find out what the finances are, you make a long-term plan in conjunction with the professionals, you give strong direction for the long term, you give the staff the tools they need to accomplish the goals, make sure the public is informed and well represented, and then get out of the way. Let them do their job. I've worked for boards myself. The Chamber Board had 27 board members, so I know how it is to get consensus. When I ran the Boys and Girls Club, we had 40 board members, and I've been on many boards. So I understand the role completely, and I think when it's properly done, as I believe it is here, you get great results.
Thanks, Dwayne. I have a whole list of questions over here, so I'll keep going unless you guys flag me down, all right? All right, so I think this time around, since I was planning on going one by one, but I think you're right, Jennifer, you're kind of getting the last, so I'll start with you this time, so put extra attention. What do you think are the strengths and weaknesses of the district? So I'll repeat it just so you guys can think about it. What do you think are some of the strengths and weaknesses of the district? Maybe it's a reason you're running. You want to kick us off?
Sure. I think that some of the strengths of the district are, they have excellent employees. They have a lot of employee retention. People who come to the district love working here. They work here for a long time. And so you really have relationships built, among staff, and that's great. They provide extremely high quality services, fantastic drinking water, reliable sewer. It's a top-notch operation, and I'm not looking to get in there and change everything up. I respect everything that they're doing here, and I just want to keep it going and help plan for the future. I would say the only weakness is, that the system is old and the infrastructure needs upgrading. This is a system that parts of it were built in the 50s, and so it's kind of a patchwork system that was put together, and some things need to be replaced, and so that is just a challenge that needs to be dealt with, because we need to make those changes before there's any sort of a failure and a emergency. So that's it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Jerry, what do you think? What are the strengths and weaknesses of the district?
Well, I love the way that the district has become so sustainable as far as moving the waste off the hill and all the things that they have accomplished there with Diamond Valley Ranch and those types of things. I also love the way that they've gotten the new backup generators, for emergencies. That is something that's so important because, as you know, we have outages in Tahoe. I've been here through a few of them, and so water and sewer is something so important. We don't want to let that fail. As far as weaknesses go, I have to agree that it is the infrastructure that we have. You have a basin out here that needs some serious repair. That we saw on our walk through, besides the aging water lines. And there are areas, sorry. there are areas that still require fire safety upgrades. And so I think that's really important.
Jane, what do you think? Strengths and weaknesses?
Strengths, you just happen to land, I guess, the district right in the middle of a really great source of water. So I think that's one of your greatest strengths. I think the other one is your staff is really, over the years, I've gotten to know many of the staff here, and I think they're very professional and they're very dedicated, got a very high retention. I think that's great. I think the leadership itself is very progressive, starting to enter into alternative energy sources to kind of fuel the operations. I think that's a strength. Especially as we move into some of the legislation that will be coming down from California and basically forcing that upon utilities. Weaknesses, I agree, the infrastructure is an issue, and that's something that needs to be dealt with. And then I think the vulnerability to wildfire, I think that's a big deal. And it's not just putting in, increased pressure. That's definitely something that needs to happen, but you also got to deal with your fuels and kind of think of it in a more broad kind of more complete picture in terms of how you manage your vulnerabilities to wildfire risk.
Thanks, Shane. Margie, what do you think? Strengths and weaknesses of the district?
I would say our strengths really are the talent density we have in our field crews and our professional staff here in the office. We have an extreme amount of talent that gets a number of things done and solved quickly. The weaknesses, I would say, probably the biggest weaknesses is this is a very expensive community, so it's hard to get infrastructure done that really needs it. But because we are such an expensive community and we're in a very sensitive area, it's expensive to get things done. So that's where it plays hard with a community that is not overly wealthy and a very costly way to have to fix things.
Thanks for that, Margie. Kelly, what do you think? Strengths and weaknesses of the district?
I echo what everyone has said. I think that this is an extremely well-run organization. I have the utmost respect for our staff. I agree with Margie. There's so much talent. And I don't know if the infrastructure improvement is necessarily, it's more of a challenge. And the challenge is how do we do that cost effectively and without breaking the backs of our ratepayers, with not having to have 10 and 15% increases in our rates. And so it is the weakness, and I think everybody agrees. I mean, the infrastructure is very fragile, and none of us want to have what, you know, God bless him, Jim Jones always said was going to happen. You know, we're going to have a catastrophic breakdown, and no one wants that. But it's, you know, it's a fine balance. How do we do it? And so, like I said, I don't know if that's a weakness, but it's definitely a challenge, and it definitely needs to be addressed.
Thanks, Kelly. What do you think, Dave? Strengths and weaknesses of the district?
Okay. Fortunately, my list of strengths is longer than weaknesses. First strength, good water. A very stable supply source, very simple supply source. We get all our water from groundwater. It's very simple. We are not tangled in water rights. We're not tangled in the California Delta. There are a lot of agencies that are, and it is a nightmare. And we are not involved. That's nice. 100% recycled wastewater. It's one of the only agencies out there that recycles every drop. Good organizational functioning. We talked about that. And this organization is not in the news for conflicts and other controversial issues. So it operates under the radar. That means it's functioning very well. Let's go to weaknesses. Aging infrastructure. It's not unique to this organization, but the pipes are getting old, the pumps are getting old, and replacements are necessary. High energy costs, especially for the Luther Pass export system. And then the threat of PCE, groundwater contamination. Right now, it's only affecting a few of the wells, but that's out there as well, and I guess I consider that a weakness.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
What do you think, Dwayne?
You gave my speech, I'm good.
You're done for the night?
I agree, pure water, something that a lot of districts don't have is no wastewater, no weaker wastewater violations for like 25 years. Some have 25 in a week. Our strengths are our long-term employees. There's just no doubt about it. We have hundreds of years, as evidenced by Max and others, who understand every nook and cranny of the district and aren't afraid to throw themselves up against nature in the middle of a snowstorm and fix whatever is wrong. We have a great corporate culture. We really do. And I've tried as a board member to watch and hope and encourage that corporate culture where we battle any outside problems or forces. Our weaknesses are really more challenges, as we pointed out. We're a cork on the water of the state and federal regulations. They come at us from all different angles, and fortunately, the district is not afraid to fight those. Thank you.
Thanks, Dwayne. All right. Julie, you moved your mask. You have a question for us?
I do. I will chime in and give you a break for a second. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Keisha Ryan. I manage the engineering department here at the district. And I've been here for almost 15 years. And over that time, I've seen the role of the engineering department change quite a lot. When I first arrived, our role was primarily designing and building grid construction management on capital projects. We still do that, but our roles expanded into asset management, and so we are working much more actively with the crews on how to operate and maintain systems and how to prolong the life of our $2 billion worth of infrastructure. And so my question for you is, we've worked with the board and gotten their buy-in to do this change priority. And so I'm wondering if any of you have any other priorities that you would like to see the engineering department take on during your tenure.
All right, so I'm going to simplify. Julie and I work really well together. She's smarter than me.
Entry is not valid.
All right, so maybe how would you, what are your priorities for the district, and how would you what are your priorities, and how would you go about trying to get them implemented?
And I'm looking at the engineering department.
So that means, right, that means like capital projects, right? So what are your priorities for the district that we can work on in terms of infrastructure? So I think last time I did, Dwayne, Dave, jumped over to Jennifer. Jerry, you want to kick us off?
I'll try. I have been saying during my campaign that fire safety is one of my big issues, and that would be putting in the fire hydrants where they need to be, and replacing the lines in the areas where they're most needed. Those, like the district, you have the 10-year plan, which is really great. But a 10-year plan, you can't just look at it and then put it away. You have to adjust it to what's happening at the time. And with what's happening with our environment, I just feel very strongly that the fire safety is an important issue. But before anything gets done, we have to work with this gentleman right over here and get his thoughts on the matter before things are changed.
Awesome. Thanks, Jerry. Should we snake back this way? All right, Shane, go ahead.
I'm going to try to gear this towards engineering. I know that's who asked the question. So I think for me, it's really getting you geared up for installing renewable energy sources. I think the whole concept of installing a solar field here in the backyard, or maybe even looking at some options down in the Diamond Valley Ranch area, I think that would be really awesome. Energy efficiency, really working towards LED and doing what you can to improve the energy efficiency of the operations. And then the other thing, I had a conversation with Lynn Nolan the other day, and it seems like she's got a lot going on in terms of grants, and it would be nice if we could distribute some of that work in some way. I'm not sure if it's engineering, but it seems like there's probably a lot of opportunity to get more money, more grant money, free money to help support some of the needs of the district.
Margie, what do you think? What are the priorities for the district in the engineering department?
Well, I think the 10-year plan that you guys have spent so much time on is excellent. And I think it's been shifting a little bit since this spring, just from what I looked at in the beginning, and then I printed it out again today, and it seems like you're really listening to the general public, because it seems like the public is pushing the fire hydrant and fire flow. We all get a little nervous around here in the fall because it's dry and it's a time to become a tinderbox. But we'll gear it more to the engineering department, and I liked when I listened about the efficiencies. and they brought up Bayview well as compared to El Tahoe well, and not even starting El Tahoe well if you don't have to, but if you do have to start it, keep it going because it costs so much to run, where Bayview is so much more efficient. So the more stations that we can make more efficient makes our power bills go down, which means we have more money to spend on infrastructure and get it fixed. So I think looking for efficiencies is the way to go.
Awesome. Thanks, Margie. What do you think, Kelly? What are the priorities for the district?
Well, I think if we're gearing it towards the engineering department, to a certain extent, we have to depend on your input and your knowledge. I agree that, fire suppression is huge. That's a very big issue in this community. And also, catastrophic spills that, can cause fines. And so and I know you guys are doing a good job and you're working in that direction. And I think our 10-year plan is changing because we didn't go through with the rate increases that we had planned. We have, done a customer relief program. So we're really a work in progress right now. And like I said, I think more than ever, unfortunately for you maybe, we have to depend on your input. Whether it be John or you or Shannon, we have to get that input like, hey, look, this cannot be put off. And so I really think that's the key, is you providing us input.
Thanks, Kelly. Dave, what do you think are the priorities for the district in terms of capital projects, asset management, things engineering deals with?
Sure, I think first and foremost, tackling replacements and upgrades in a proactive manner to minimize emergencies and service outages. Make sure long-term water supplies are secure, and make sure wastewater does not degrade our environment, and in fact is being recycled in a sustainable and useful fashion. Number two, make sure rates and fees are fair and reasonable and planned over many years to avoid rate spikes that are hard for ratepayers to handle. And number three, plan and implement a full energy recovery project for the Luther Pass wastewater export system. This would produce in the neighborhood of 1 megawatt of carbon-free hydropower and could be configured for peak power, fetching top energy prices and working in synergy with interruptible solar and wind. Those are my top three.
Thanks so much. Dwayne, what do you think? What are priorities for our district's engineering department with capital projects and asset management, and how to move those forward?
First, I'm going to say, after spending many years looking out, I can read the engineers pretty good. And the frustration you have is with the asset management program, you identify these things that need to be done, and then is the pot full of money so that you can do it. And it's very frustrating if the priorities of the engineering department that they show us aren't met, because then you feel responsible, but you get 5 bozos up there you've got to deal with. But the asset management program was good because it caused the everyday workers to be able to talk with the engineers, because there's been a divide, not on purpose, but if you're physically separated, it just happens. That's put more engineers in the field talking to workers, which has saved money, and they have great ideas as well as the engineers. The system enhancement and improvements are for energy savings, I think, are smart. That's just money savings, so we can put more out there. And then continually evaluating our wants versus our needs. And my time is up.
Thank you, Dwayne. Thank you.
That's okay. I'm last again.
Teamwork makes the dream work. Jennifer, what do you think? What are some of the priorities in terms of capital projects and asset management?
I would echo what Kelly says about we need your buy-in, and you tell us what the engineering department's priorities are and what they want to see happen and what their staff's strengths are. But definitely incorporating renewable energy projects into the engineering department plan, seeing what projects we can pursue and how the engineering department can help with those projects. I know that tomorrow the board is looking at the solar project here at the wastewater treatment plant, and I think that's great. I would love to see what other types of renewable energy projects there are that we could do, and certainly the engineering department could have buy-in with that and help with those priorities as well. And also, the infrastructure, the expansion of the fire suppression system, all, key components that need to be tended to that have, 10-year plans and money set aside. So, those are all things that are within the engineering department's purview and that you can help us create the priorities and the policies for.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I don't see any other quick mask. The mask removal could be your sign to me. So I have another question for the board. What role should the district play in the community? We're the water and sewer provider for South Lake Tahoe, but we're also a big employer and a big public agency. So what do you feel is the role the district should play in the community? Kelly, maybe I'll kick it off with you this time and we'll go down again.
I think we're a big part of the community, and I feel as though, it's been said a million times, the average person, they want to turn on their water spigot and see water, they want to flush the toilet and see it go down. But I think we need to keep everyone aware of all the activities and the really important job that we do here. And I think we need to be good stewards of our community. We need to be volunteers, we need to be out there, and which we do. There's a lot of employee programs, but I think it's very important that we're a contributing member of our community.
Absolutely. Margie, what do you think?
I think awareness is a big part of it. Awareness on the things that go in the sewer that just shouldn't be there, that cause so much extra work and time, like corn husks and flushable wipes, and now rubber gloves. But I don't quite know how I wrote this down, so I'm going to say it, but I don't know how I was thinking about how it worked in. But anyway, this was years ago, but part of our community, we built a skate park just over here, and the guy that was putting it together needed some like manhole lids or different things that we had in our boneyard, and he got to go pick some things out, and they're in the skate park over there. So I think that was really quite cool.
What do you think, Shane?
I think the district has a huge role in our community. Obviously, providing exceptional water and sewer service is fundamental both to our economy and community well-being. I think the district has a role in partnering with CTC, the Forest Service, others to implement fuels reduction projects to help better protect our communities as well as the district's infrastructure. Possibly could do more in the area of providing parks, recs type facilities, maybe Black Bark Pioneer, maybe a little community park. So, come more of the IVGID model where you might, there might be an opportunity for that instead of it just being a dilapidated building sitting there. I think clearly COVID relief is something that you guys are stepping up and taking part in. I think some of the stuff we learned on our tour is Jeff and you do a lot of education for our kids. They get them an understanding of where it goes, and I think that's a great community role that the district's playing. And I think the other thing is affordable housing, and in terms of doing what you can to kind of reduce those upfront costs for making affordable housing work. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Shane. Jerry, what do you think? What role does the district play? What role should the district play in our community?
You can't have a community if you're not participating. And I think that is a really important issue. As we go out to either assist with the park or educate people, because as we go out there, we're able to educate them about what the district does, which is more than just drinking water and flushing, it's much more complex than that. And it's really unappreciated for the most part. Most people don't think about it because it just always works. And so as we get out there, we are helping the public understand who we are. We're teaching them about us. And as you reach out to others, they tend to return that in goodwill and perhaps willingness to pay more.
Thanks, Jerry. Jennifer, what do you think? What role should the district play in this in our community?
I think it's really critical that the district listens to the needs of the community and is really tuned in to what's happening in the community. And, you know, things change, finances change, you know, communities go through cycles. And I think that, you know, we need to be aware of what the priorities are for our community members. We need to be mindful about, you know, costs of services and sensitive to decisions to increase rates. But we want to continue to provide high quality services. So there's always going to be a balancing act there. You know, I think we need to educate the community about, you know, what they can do for their part to make our services, you know, high quality and less expensive. And also addressing community needs, like the affordable housing is a huge issue. And I think that, you know, there are things that we could do at the district to help incentivize affordable housing projects for developers, because nobody ever wants to get involved with those projects because they're not money makers. But if we can provide incentives like reduced connection costs or reduced fees for the, you know, first 5 years after the project's completed, I think that might help incentivize people.
Thank you. Dwayne, what do you think? What role should the district play in the community?
Well, I think we need to keep the word public in public utility at the forefront. For instance, we need to recognize the affordable housing. It's not for the community, it's just for our own employees who we try to attract. We need to absolutely recognize that there's a fire threat to our community and that it's up to us to supply the water that they need to put out a fire. We need to recognize the economic conditions of our community. We live in a community that has people that are well below the economic line that makes them sustainable. And we need to work well with other agencies, which I think that the district has done well. It started up what they call 2x2s and two utility board meetings. Members meet with 2 city council members. They have 2 board members that meet with 2 supervisors. And so that we're beginning to find issues that we can work together. We need to defend our district from things that may hurt our community.
Thanks, Dwayne. Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a balance. This is a small town of permanent people. It's a small town, and you have to be a good corporate citizen. I think the district can work with other agencies, with the other policy agencies, city council, board supervisors, in helping them to plan for growth, because, you know, utility service is a big part of the feasibility of growth and doing things in a smart way. So I think that working with sister agencies is important. But the balance is we also need to stay in our lane to a certain extent. Our job is to keep the water running and to make the sewage go away without people knowing a whole lot or thinking about it, and without getting into the news in a negative way. So we've got to balance being helpful with other agencies, but recognize that some of these other policy issues are those of other agencies. We can help where we can, but we've got a specific job to do.
I have a question from someone online asking, are any of the candidates interested in looking into and advocating for shifting to a more progressive rate structure for water in the district? So I'll repeat that question. Are any of the candidates interested in looking into and advocating for shifting to a more progressive rate structure for water in the district? And when I asked to try to to clarify, what does progressive rate structure means, they shared a blog about understanding the 5 different types of water rate structures in terms of flat rates, uniformed rates, increasing block rates, decreasing block rates, things like that. So I'll ask the question one more time and then I'll kick it off to you guys. Are any of the candidates interested in looking into and advocating for shifting to a more progressive rate structure for water in the district?
Maybe before they go into that, their response, we should let them know what our rate structure is.
Yes.
In case anybody doesn't know. We do have a few flat rate customers left, but it's just a few because they're people who haven't been metered yet. And then our metered rate is an increasing block structure for the residential side. And that means that each additional block of water costs more than the first block. So that is our structure right now.
For residential, and
yes.
then for commercial?
Commercial does not have the increasing block. And our sewer rates are actually currently all flat rate because that service is not metered.
Right. All right, so any interest in changing to a, looking into or advocating for shifting to a more progressive rate structure for water at the district? Kelly, have I started with you yet?
I think so. I'll start.
Did I do it last time? Anybody remember who I started with last time?
You start with me.
Okay.
I was going to say, this question is a little, it's kind of hard to off the cuff to answer to it, but I can say this, I'm always interested in improving our rate structure, making it more fair, making it more palatable for our ratepayers. So I guess will say, yes, I am interested. I'm interested in, investigating and trying to come up with maybe something that's better than what we're doing right now.
Margie, I do think I'm having
But I'll go again.
flashbacks.
Well, I think what our community, or the person who asked that question, needs to understand is that in California, there's a lot of restrictions on that, and there's a lot of tough guidelines to follow for that. So it is something that takes a lot of study, and but I do agree that it would be exceptional to be able to look at a progressive rate structure. But we're in a very sensitive community for the hotels and for our commercial customers, and we're in a very seasonal community that swings high and low for money and for usage. So we need to keep the whole picture in mind and try to be as fair as possible.
Awesome. Shane?
I guess I would be open to it. I think for me, I'd want to know the details of how that looked and how it balanced out financially, and what it meant for our capital improvement program. And so there'd be a lot of details that I would need to understand before I could totally buy into it. But I guess I'm open to some conversations around that for sure. So.
Gary?
I am very open-minded regarding any new ideas. I like to look at ideas and come up with multiple ways of doing things. That is what I'm good at. And so the answer would be yes.
Awesome. Jennifer?
I would certainly be interested in hearing more about that and whether or not that's something that's feasible for the district to do. I would be inclined to look at some sort of a program where we perhaps offer reduced rates to nonprofit organizations in town because they're always operating at such a fixed and limited budget. But certainly I would be interested in hearing more about what that looked like and how that would work, and whether or not that's something that the district is allowed to do.
Thanks. Dwayne?
Yes, I fought water meters for many years, and the reason why is we have plenty of water. The reason they're doing water meters is to squeeze more water from Northern California down to south, and of course to save water is always a good thing. The district did a good thing. I wasn't on the board when they did it, but they made the base rate a little bit higher, urging, I think, of Leonard Carter and some of the others in town to make the base rate higher and the usage rate a little bit lower, so it wouldn't hurt people as bad. So the structure is progressive in the sense that the more you use, if you want to wastewater or if you want to have more plants, it costs you more. If you want to conserve, it costs you less. We have, at my urging, lowered the cost for connections to the sewer by 50% in order to allow a little bit more building. And we're going to be working on looking at a rate for affordable housing to give them a break. So, and then the state tried, and we fought the ability to, they wanted to tax all water customers in the state so they could help others. And we're working on that.
Thanks, Dwayne. Dave?
Yeah, I am philosophically supportive of conservation pricing. I think water conservation is important, but the reality is it's difficult under state law. You have to show a nexus between the rate you charge and the cost of the service. So if you can show that that next increment is more expensive, then you can charge more for that next increment. For instance, if you have one well that doesn't require treatment, that's the first increment. But if you use more water and you have to turn on the second well and it has to go through treatment, then it costs more. And so you can justify an inclining block rate. I agree with Dwayne that if you're choosing between putting part of the rate into a flat fee versus a usage charge, I would rather see the usage charge be more of the total rate than the flat fee. But it's very hard to do an inclining block structure unless you can really show a nexus to increase costs.
Dave? Audience, anyone want to wave their mask at me? All right, and we don't have any more from online, so I'll go for another one off of my list. Many of you have spoken about this challenge of constrained budgets with lots of work to be done. So how would you prioritize spending and projects, recognizing that the budget is not as big as it could be to fix all the problems? I'll repeat that question without so many words. So with a constrained budget, how would you prioritize spending and projects? Marky, why don't you?
Okay. I think in order to prioritize projects, we have to work with the engineers because they're the ones that are measuring and studying the efficiency and productivity of our pumps on the sewer side and on the water side. So the priority would be, like, if we have something that's needing use but not being efficient, then those are the projects that should come first. But I mean, I am going to give you a but on that. Our ratepayers, again, have spoken about the fire hydrants and the fire lines and that kind of thing. So we have to balance with what our staff is saying and what our public is wanting, and marry those up as best we can.
Thanks. Shane, what do you think?
Yeah, I guess the way I would look at it is finding ways to reduce discretionary spending. You know, is there ways of more efficiently doing work? I think definitely I would look to engineering and their asset management system and kind of their prioritization scheme, and really try to understand and work through kind of where the biggest issues are, and then focusing on spending on fixing those issues or repairing those issues. And then again, I've mentioned this once before, but I think, you know, trying to find alternative sources of revenue, grants, disadvantaged community type grants, things like that. There's probably some opportunity to sell some reused water to the ranchers instead of giving it away. So there's I mean, I guess I'd look at trying to find revenue sources and reducing discretionary spending, and then again, really focusing on prioritizing what's most important.
Jerry, what do you think? With the constrained budget, how would you prioritize spending in projects?
Well, you know, it doesn't matter how much money you have. You always have a finite amount of money. And there's only so much you can spend. And while the district has done great on doing grants and for specific projects and stuff, you can't count on that money until you actually win it. And so it always comes down to making priorities. What is most urgent at that time, considering the circumstances of the time. You know, what might be important to us last year might be very different as to what's important this year, depending on what's going on. But for the most part, you already have that plan of the items that you've identified as what's important. And so you start with that and you go through and decide with current circumstances now, what should our priority be?
Jennifer, what do you think? With a constrained budget, how would you prioritize spending in projects?
Well, fortunately, in terms of the infrastructure upgrades and the fire suppression system expansion, there's already money that's kind of been earmarked for these projects. So it's really just, you know, making a plan and getting these things done in a timely fashion before there's some sort of a catastrophe that then you can't control the cost, and all of a sudden that $40,000 project has turned into a $400,000 project, and then that's eating into more of the money that you've already earmarked for this project, and you can't do as much. So, you know, making sure that those upgrades and plans are a priority and are getting done is certainly important. But I definitely want to invest in exploring renewable energy projects, because if the district can bring down its energy costs, you know, that's a huge savings. And so then that money that we're spending, I think it's something like $70,000 a month that we're spending on energy. If we can find a way to reduce that, you know, that's more money that we can put towards other things. So, you know, looking at renewable energy, bringing the energy costs down, perhaps, you know, looking at some of the surplus land the district might have and things that we could do with that, land leases, or, you know, leasing for solar projects, or, you know, exploring other opportunities in that regard.
Thanks. Dwayne, what do you think? With a constrained budget, how would you prioritize spending in projects at the district?
Well, I think the district's already doing it. We have contingency plans and things of that nature, and the asset management program is supplying daily more information so that we can make decisions by TVing the lines, finding out where the worst problems are. So number one, we don't have a catastrophe, and number two, we can best use our funds. But it's just a have to versus want to thing, and we have to look at those things. But I intend to continue using the contacts I've developed in Washington, D.C., and at the state. We've been very successful in the past, no matter which party's been in office. President Clinton, in his first speech in the Restoration Act, which we're part of, said, giving you guys $7 million, and took a little finagling, but we got it. We've done COP bonds when they made sense, borrowing a little bit because we have excellent credit. And we actually won a lawsuit at about $70 million. So being aggressive as a board can help the staff find the gaps in the funding.
Thanks, Dwayne. Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the first priority is actually to invest in planning. A good plan gives you that prioritization and gives you the financing plan to move forward on. It tells you what you need to do first. I can't sit here and tell you what's first. I think this is a staff and consultant exercise that they bring to the board. But investing in planning is first and foremost the important thing to do. Then we spend in order of those priorities. As Dwayne mentioned, also chase outside money wherever we can. Chase grant money. Federal, state, and NGOs, non-governmental organizations, oftentimes have grants. Public-private partnerships are also possible. I mentioned earlier the Luther Pass energy recovery system that I would like to see move forward. There are independent private consortiums that might be interested in building that and operating it in order to recover that energy. So anyway, public-private partnerships is another avenue. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to echo what everybody said. I mean, we have to depend heavily on staff to help us prioritize. I think we need to be very open-minded to any source of revenue that we can have, which is everybody's brought up wonderful ones. And we need to be efficient in our day-to-day operations to keep costs down. And I believe in the, exploring renewable energy and saving on our energy costs as well.
Thanks, Kelly. I have one here. If there are misconceptions about the district, how would you go about correcting them? Right? As a board member, you'll know more than most and be setting that vision. So if there are misconceptions out in the community, maybe there are some now, maybe there will be under your tenure as a board member. If there are misconceptions out in the community, how would you go, how would you approach correcting them? Shane, I think you're up this time.
Okay. Well, I guess my initial, thought was I'll just send you out to go deal with that.
Oh. This was not my question.
I know, but I mean, you do such a great job. I watched a couple of your videos in preparation for this meeting, but so I think, I think there's part of it is Shelley's role is providing really good public relations and getting the communicating with our community. But the other part, as a board member, is really trying to connect with the community and talking with people. Really, I think that's as straightforward as that, and understanding what the issues or concerns are, and hopefully having a deeper understanding by participating on the board, you can help maybe correct some misunderstandings or misinformation.
Awesome. Jerry, what do you think? If there are misconceptions about the district, how would you approach correcting them?
Well, I will answer that question by giving an example of something I had done in the past. I was out in front of my resort one time, and a lady was walking by and asked who I was, and I told her, and she started to call me a lot of different names. And I didn't know this lady. And so anyway, I asked her who she was and what her concerns were, and she, said a couple of sentences, and I invited her into my office. Said, please come in, let's talk about this. So she did. About an hour and a half later, she left the room, and we visit all the time since then. She left saying, well, I guess there's at least two sides to a story. And so basically it's communicating and not being offended when somebody, growls at you.
Jennifer, what do you think? If there are misconceptions about the district out there, how would you approach, how would you address them?
Well, there's a lot of information on the district's website, and I would definitely want to, address anything like that on the website, as well as make press releases to get information to people and local papers, and perhaps even including something in with everyone's bill, because that's something everyone's going to open, everyone looks at. That's a great way to reach everybody in the community, and so that would be a way to, some people say that, this is going on and we just want to respond to that and clarify and, provide that information to people. So I think that would be an effective way to get the word out to the community to clear things up.
Dwayne, what do you think? If there's misconceptions about the district, how would you approach correcting them?
Well, that's why I urge that they hire you.
Right.
And our GMs have done a lot to service clubs. Richard started it more, and John has been doing it. So they're the face of the district, and you're the face of the district. And to a certain extent, we are. I suggested, and they didn't like the idea that our crews wear Caltrans shirts for controlling traffic. But board can and should represent the district with accurate information. And when we don't know the answer, we give them the phone number of our GM, and he can direct the proper staff members to handle it. And then what I do when that happens is I follow up and say, did you get your question answered? And sometimes, and sometimes it's about a rate, sometimes it's about maybe they think the water doesn't taste right or whatever. We just have to know what we're talking about so that we don't represent the district wrongly. But usually that's what I do, is I just direct them to the proper person.
What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I think it depends on the nature of the problem. If it's an individual or an organization or the public at large, those are different problems to be addressed. I think the first thing the board needs to do is agree on a spokesman for the issue, whether that be the public information officer, the general manager, or the president of the board. It's not likely to be just any board member. It would probably, if it was a board member representing the board, it'd probably be the president representing the board publicly. I think staff does the heavy lifting and developing the message and the facts, and then the president, if designated, would carry that message to whichever person, organization, or public at large. It may, for the public at large, it may require an op-ed. I would expect that staff would be the primary author of that op-ed, but the signatory would probably be the president of the board.
What do you think, Kelly? How to
I
address?
agree that there's different instances. I try to, if it's something I feel very comfortable with, I will, give a response. But I heavily rely on staff. I think that I find the right staff person, and it would probably be John or Shelley. And I think that's the most important, because I agree with Dwayne. We don't want to come off as glib or, not really knowing what we're speaking about in the proper terminology. So I think the best thing is to take it to staff, but to follow up to make sure that staff, and I've done it numerous times. I will say I've done it numerous times, and I've gotten callbacks. Thank you so much. I had best conversation. I got so much information. I totally was misinformed, and I apologize.
Somebody really said I apologize?
They did.
All right. You said that person.
They did it before I gave them that shot at Crown Royal.
All right. Tuesday. Margie, what do you think? How to address misconceptions out of the district, about the district out in the community?
Okay. Well, I think when we have misconceptions, like the broad-based ones, you're already going to be on top of that, that kind of thing. But it's when it comes to us face-to-face, that's where we have to really take the time and listen to them, and then work with them on actually finding out what their issue is. And then if we don't feel comfortable with the answer, then we need to direct them to either you or John, and then it can be worked through the system that way. But I do want to tell you about a short story that this last weekend I was walking and campaigning, and this lady was mad as heck about how somebody was watering every single day of the week. And she knew that was wrong, and how come they couldn't follow it? And it took a while to figure out that they were in the Tahoe Keys, and that isn't our water company. And then she was like, okay, so I won't be mad at stupid for that. And I said, thank you.
I got one of those too, actually. Lucan's brothers, yeah.
Awesome. All right. I think we made it all the way around. I have another question from our online community. As a large employer, what efforts can the district make moving forward to develop, recruit, and hire more diverse staff in the department, for the department? I'll repeat the question. As a large employer, what efforts can the district make moving forward to develop, recruit, and hire more diverse staff in the department? I think I started with you last time, right, Shane? All right, Jerry, I'll start with you this time. You guys want me to repeat the question one more time? All right. As a large employer, what efforts can the district make moving forward to develop, recruit, and hire more diverse staff in the department. I think it means for the district. How to develop, recruit, and hire more diverse staff
Oh, diversity.
at the district. Jerry, you want to kick us off?
Sure. Staffing is such an important issue. And we really need to appreciate the staff, not only for the work that they do, but the individual person that they are. And that's really important. As far as developing and hiring and recruiting staff, it's my opinion that I like to promote from within. I like to give appreciation and empower employees to do better for themselves, even if it's not in our district. If it's for them to go someplace else, I want them to do well for themselves. And so I like to promote from within. As far as a diverse staff, a lot of the positions here are quite technical. And so you're limited as to who you can hire for the different positions.
Thanks, Jerry. Jennifer, what do you think? What efforts can the district make moving forward to develop, recruit, and hire more diverse staff?
That's a really tough question because we don't really have that much turnover here. So it's hard to, anticipate what the needs are going to be. And I agree with Jerry, promoting from within makes a lot of sense because then you have people who have, been here and they know the systems and they know how things are done and run here. But, staffing decisions are really more for the department heads. And I don't know that the board has that much control over, the individual staffing. I mean, certainly we have a say in hiring the general manager, but that's a tough call. I'd like to think about that a little bit more and see what we could do.
Dwayne, I think that's how we zigzag. Dwayne, what do you think? What can the district do? What efforts can the district make moving forward to develop, recruit, and hire more diverse staff?
Well, if I were coaching a team, I'd want the best athlete available. And as an organization, we should try to hire the best person available. However, there are things we can do to encourage someone who's a minority, because as Jerry mentioned, we have some highly technical positions. So one way to do it that the district's already doing, as far as I can tell, is hiring people and then training them to get their certificate while they're on the job. It takes a little bit of extra work, and we've certainly hired more women over the years, and we've even hired some millennials. But I would say that STPUD probably has roughly the same configuration as our community to a certain degree. I don't go out and count, but that's certainly been our goal.
Dwayne, what do you think, Dave? How to develop, recruit, and hire more diverse staff at the district?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a feel for the current diversity makeup of the organization, so I don't know whether there's a problem or not, or whether there's an issue. I guess my experience in California agencies in general is that they're fairly diverse. California's a pretty good melting pot, and so I don't see a lot of problems there. But I guess the first step would be understanding what STPUD, what the makeup is. If there was, I would want to assure that we do have an equal opportunity policy, and that it's being followed and implemented, and that we're advertising statewide for positions. I'm sure we do, but make sure that the policies are in place for outreach to all communities.
What do you think, Kelly?
I agree with what David said, and I do feel as though we have a good policy, and, you know, maybe this is something, once again, staff can jump in on. But, and it's my understanding that right now, we have no trouble getting applicants for the, you know, more entry-level positions. It's the more technical that we might have, you know, a bigger problem recruiting. And I know we do advertise statewide, and, you know, so and diverse, that's such a, you know, I don't know what kind of diversity they want. They want racial diversity, or, I think our policy is good right now, but it's just like everything, it can always be looked at and improved.
I need to write down who we started with. I think we started with Jerry. So Margie, you're up.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we don't know what we don't know. So I would say possibly we need a little, and I'm not saying that we're not hiring broadly now, but I want to say that that maybe we need a little bias training, and maybe we're being biased and don't know it. And then if we aren't being biased, then we know, and we're getting what we can get in this community. But I'm sure we advertise statewide, because I know statewide people advertise for jobs like what my husband had, because I can't tell you how many letters and postcards used to come to our mailbox, and they must have figured out he's 71 now, and they might not want him anymore because we don't get as many job offers in the mail as we used to.
Thanks, Margie. Shane, what do you think? How to develop, recruit, and hire more diverse staff?
Yeah, I think, again, I agree with Dave in that it really starts with an equal opportunity policy statement, and then really it being embodied throughout the organization through their hiring practices. I think the engineering department has an internship program, which I understand, which I think is a great potential avenue of maybe even plucking some kids out of LTCC or elsewhere, maybe the inner city or Sacramento or other areas where you get a better representation of, I guess, minorities coming through. I think maybe advertising in professional organization journals or those that or I guess organizations that might have more minority affiliation. And I think those are maybe some of the things that are going on. I think the tough part is, I think everybody recognizes this is a really great job, and it pays well. It's got great benefits, and people don't want to leave. It's a really good, it's a great place to live, and so it's hard to get the turnover necessary to, you know, change over the staff. But it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. We have great staff.
Awesome. Thanks, Shane. All right, I've got another question here, and it'll probably be our last of the evening. Does that sound right, Melanie? Yep. All right. So take a deep breath. This is going to be the last one, and I'm sure you prepared for this one. So what have you done to prepare for being a board member? I'll repeat it again. What have you done to prepare to be a board member? And I think we started with Jerry last, so Jennifer, why don't you kick it off for us?
All right. Well, lately I've spent time reviewing the board minutes and agenda packets to see what types of things the board members are looking at and what projects are ongoing and what some of the priorities are. I came and did the tour a couple of weeks ago, and got some more information from John about overall the district and the assets and what they're doing here. It was great to be able to actually see the whole process from when the water comes in until when it's recycled and goes back out. So that was very eye-opening. And I've just been trying to find out more about who the district serves and what assets the district has, and figure out what could my role be and how can I help and how can I best fit in and provide information and knowledge in different areas.
Thanks. Dwayne, do you want to go next?
Sure.
I've started and stayed interested since 1972, as I said at the beginning. And I learned the history from the people who lived it. And then I lived and worked the history for really off and on for the last 30 years and learned a lot from Jim Jones and others. And I've learned the finances. I was on the finance committee for 20 years, so we earned the top award in the nation thanks to our department, and that we took the credit, but for our thank you, our CAFR, and we've won the top plant in the nation. And so I've been able to spend most of my time reading and learning about the operations and finances of the district, and I've found that I'm just fascinated and love doing it, and that's why I'm running again.
Thanks, Dwayne. Dave, what about you? What have you done to prepare for what have you done to prepare for being a board member?
Yeah, add a nuance to your question. To prepare for this board, I've served on several other boards in the past, and I believe that experience prepares me for this board. So I served on the San Juan Water District for 11 years, the Association of California Water Agency Board for 4 years, the National Water Resources Association, that board for 4 years, and my own company for 15 years. So I think all of those combined, I understand the workings of the board and the functioning of a good board, the functioning of a bad board, and what makes things work, what makes things break down. So that's been my part.
Kelly, how have you prepared?
I have served on this board for the past 9 years. I've gained valuable knowledge. I served on the operations committee, finance committee. I'm currently part of the executive committee, and it's been a learning process the whole time. I've progressed. I feel as though I've progressed. I've learned a lot, and I've become a good board member. So all my experience is right here.
Thanks, Kelly. Margie, how have you prepared?
I have watched a lot of your board meetings on video, and it's really great that you have different speeds that you can put it at, because some meetings go a little faster than others. But I think I've gotten well informed by watching those videos. I ask a lot of questions, and I'm really glad that John Teal's behind me. I can't even see what his face is doing. Ask him so many questions.
Maybe the best word, I get it.
Yep. And then I control the mail at our house, and I am adamant that it gets picked up every day. But this summer, a magazine came that was giving all the different classes that you could get your certification hours for your certificates, which my husband gets. And one of the classes was board policies and roles. So, of course, I told Max we were taking that class, and we sat down together, and luckily it was Zoom, and we got to watch that class online. If you want details of where it came from, you're going to have to ask him, because I can't remember what it was called. But then the last part of it is being, okay, I'll shut up.
Shane, how have you prepared?
Real quick, so I've been showing up to some of the login board meetings. I've looked at some past board meetings related to the 218 rate increase. I've actually reviewed the administrative code and as well as the board manual. Good stuff. Reviewed the recently adopted environmental policy and the COVID relief program. I've had several conversations with John and you and Julie and Shannon and a little bit with Paul, but trying to get around with Jeff. That tour of the facility was really good. It was my third one. So, and then I've actually been talking to ratepayers and trying to understand if they have any issues, and surprisingly, really nobody does. I did get an email about somebody that was related to Lucan's brothers. And then of course I've watched your videos online.
Jerry, how have you prepared for this board visit?
I started to watch, I did watch the January and February videos, but I found the sound was hard to listen to. And so I went to the minutes from February, March on, and went through them. then I called John and asked questions for the things that I wanted to have clarified. But besides that, I have served for many years on different boards and commissions. The Planning Commission for the City of South Lake Tahoe, the County Commission on Aging, where we worked with the Area on Aging, which was very similar to your Water Purveyors Board on the county level. And so I have an empathy and understanding of what it is to be a manager working with a board. And my time is up.
Awesome. So that completes our, that wraps up our question and answer portion of the evening. Did you have one more?
Oh, I started.
Oh, it's all right. Teamwork makes the dream work. I don't want to. I thought you were trying to sneak in another question. I was like, I don't know about that. All right, that wraps up our question and answer section of the evening. We're going to roll into the closing remarks. So you'll each have 2 minutes, and Marla will be flagging you down, and we'll wrap up from there. For folks in the audience, if there are questions that weren't addressed, I believe all of your contact information was included in the Tribune's article, or you can contact us to submit them to board. So we'll wrap it. We'll go into that last 2-minute section. And since we had, oh man, we started at so many different points throughout. So maybe, Margie, I'll have you start.
Okay.
Go this way.
Well, you don't have to worry about timing me because mine's very short.
Okay.
She's ready.
Give your time to anybody else? Right.
My closing statements. I have been wanting and researching to be a board member for a long time. And for me personally, the timing is right now for me to have time and energy for this board. All that I have done since coming to town has prepared me for this job, and I would like to say let's collaborate in an equitable way with the community in every possible way to be examples for others to join us in continuing to make South Lake Tahoe a great place to live and work. At the district, we have a lot of talent density on the crews and the office professionals. And as a board, let's support them in every way possible to keep them looking good and our customers well served. I ask for your vote.
Thanks, Margie. Shane?
Great. I just want to say thank you again to district staff and the candidates. I wish you all luck in the election, and I'm looking forward to November 3rd coming and going. So again, I feel like my experience would offer or add to the diversity of experience that was represented on the board. For me, fundamental to the district's operation is really providing exceptional water and sewer services, reducing vulnerabilities to fire, supporting the creation of affordable housing, and really investing in energy efficiency and renewable energy. And I think there's some other things that I want to hit on, but I guess, yeah, thank you for the opportunity, and I would be honored to earn your vote. Thank you.
Jerry?
Okay, I'm going to start with another story. As manager, I was tasked with putting in a new fence and required TRPA approval. TRPA came back with all of these different requirements in order to do this project. What ended up happening was the specs that they said they required were not really required. And so by questioning and talking to the right people and thoroughly studying the matter, I was able to put up that fence for 10% of the cost of what it would have been if we had followed TRPA's original guidelines. So that is what I mean by I study my materials and I question everything. Not that I mean it in a bad way, but that's just my personality. I have been able to achieve optimal results even among competing interests, and I hope that you will let my experience work for you. Thank you.
Jennifer?
We all share a common goal. We all want to continue to enjoy the high quality, clean drinking water and reliable sewer systems that the district currently provides. And as director, I want to work to ensure that we can continue to provide these services while still making the necessary upgrades to the infrastructure and the fire suppression system and planning for a more sustainable future. We've already talked about some of the more pressing priorities, the infrastructure, the fire suppression, investing in renewable energy, I think is key, and finding ways to implement policies within departments, such as transitioning to electric vehicles as, older vehicles and trucks need to be replaced. I think that would be a great way to save some costs and reduce our carbon footprint. I'd also like to see what other ways there are to bring in revenue by maximizing some of the district's assets, maybe things that we haven't looked at before, and seeing what other opportunities there are. If elected, I will work to formulate and implement long-term planning goals in a fiscally responsible, equitable, and sustainable manner. And I'll always be guided by what's in the best interest of this community as a whole, taking into account a diverse range of perspectives, financial considerations, and the need to plan for the future. And I hope that I can get your vote. Thank you.
Jennifer? Jen should have still. All right, Dwayne, go for it. Okay.
When the board appointed me, I had talked to them about being able to check all the boxes, because that's what a voter looks for, or a board looks for in appointing someone. I've been a long-term resident. I've lived here 46 years. I know where the district's been because I was first elected in 1990. I know the district staff and hierarchy and corporate culture. I know the district finances inside and out. I understand the challenges of an aging district because I've lived along with it. I agree with and support the asset management plan. And I have good friends at the state and federal government that can help supply money. I know the district's partners and environmental watchdogs. I was on the El Dorado County Water Agency Board. I worked with EPA, USFS, bond, the league, city, TRPA, and even went to Russia to work with them at Lake Baikal. I understand the fragile environment we live in. I helped start the first presidential summit and subsequent ones. I understand the economy and our environment. And I also understand the business environment. I've been the CEO of the chamber for 14 years. So I'm in constant contact with the businesses and customers that we work with. I was on this board for many years, so I could hit the ground running. Was also on the board of the Boys and Girls Club. I helped start Leadership Lake Tahoe with Kathy Farrell. I was a founding member of the Lake Tahoe Education Foundation. I was a wrestling coach for 30 years, football coach. My 5 kids grew up in the district, and I'm electable. The district voters have elected me many times. But in order to know what someone's going to do, you need to look at what they've done. And I have the record that you can look at, and I'm proud of what I've done, and I respectfully ask for your vote.
Fine. Dave?
Sure. I'd like to just reiterate some priorities. I want to make sure that South Tahoe PD is sustainable from both an infrastructure standpoint and a resource management standpoint. I want to make sure rates and fees are fair and reasonable and plan over many years to avoid rate spikes. I want to make sure that we hire and retain good people that work hard and care about this vital service that they're providing. I want to plan and implement a full energy recovery project for the Luther Pass wastewater export system. and resolve the PCE groundwater contamination issue. That's a tall order to get all that done, but those are my goals as a board member. I want to say that I really appreciate being able to participate in this forum tonight. A lot of good people here, and a lot of good things, a lot of good ideas. So again, my name's Dave Peterson, and I would appreciate your vote.
Thanks, Dave. Kelly?
Well, I would just like to, I would also, I'm thankful that I was able to participate in this forum, and I am just so impressed with every candidate. And I think that everybody has multiple assets that would be an asset to the board. So I wish us all well. I wish us all well. I bring my 9 years of experience. I have no personal agenda. I have a common sense approach, and I work well with others, and I would be very honored to serve another 4 years.
With that, John, any closing remarks?
I think just really an impressive group of candidates. I think really maybe the best ever, but really impressive. A lot of different experiences that you all bring to the board and to the community. So really thanks for coming tonight. Thanks for your energy and your interest in the district and your community, and good luck in your campaigns and on November 3rd, and thank you very much.